family. Loyalty, trust, service. It's what you deserve and expect from Judson Irrigation.
Keep summer green. Call Judson Irrigation 402-420-6277 or judsonirrigation.com.
Spring sports are here and it's time to upgrade your equipment. But don't go rushing to your big box store. Play It Again Sports is your place to go for all spring sports equipment for baseball, softball, golf, and disc golf. Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And don't forget, buying from them is a great way to get new products with great discounts by also bringing in your used items for store credit or cash on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Working at Continental in Lincoln isn't a job, it's a career. And right now, they've raised wages again, and they're hiring for production operators at $24.62 per hour, which grows to $28.97 per hour within 3 years. Skilled trade positions now start at $33.36 per hour, with opportunities to make more based on certifications. Continental also has salary jobs available and great benefits, plus medical and prescription costs at very low premiums. Dental, vision, and life insurance are offered at no premium cost to the associates, with increased bonuses and vacation for new hires. To learn more or apply, go to continentaljobs.com with keyword Lincoln. Come work at Continental today.
Hey guys, it's Nick. 93.7 The Ticket is excited to be broadcasting this weekend from Stillwater, Oklahoma, as the Big Ten champion Nebraska baseball team appears in their first regional since 2021. From Friday through Monday, Austin and I will have pregame shows, postgame reactions, interviews, and other thoughts from Stillwater as the Huskers begin their road to Omaha. Regional coverage is presented by Mullen Motors, Sandhills Global, and Blur Events. It's NCAA baseball tournament coverage live from Stillwater, Oklahoma, this Friday through Monday on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Soulful Casino in Havelock is a family-owned business, providing incredible food and service that'll have you craving more with every bite. Soulful Casino offers everything from pulled pork to fried chicken, catfish, ribs, and even quesadillas. You want sides? They've got them. From fries, green beans and baked beans, to collard greens, potato salad, and sweet dill corn. Stop by for lunch as they have specials Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 2 p.m. That's Soulful Casino, located in Havelock, where every bite you take fills the soul.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. 93.7 The Ticket is on the road.
That ball is pelted to deep left, and that is way gone for Josh Karen.
Coming at you live from Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Karen drills another ball. That's headed to outer space again.
This is 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Hitting the gap. Left center field. Kelly cannot get there. Brumbaugh to the plate with the go-ahead run. Gabe Swanson puts the Cornhuskers on top.
Getting you ready for Nebraska baseball's first regional appearance since 2021. And live from the Garage Burgers and Beer in Stillwater.
This is Bryce Molinaro, who serves it to left. Swanson is there. The magical ride through the elimination bracket complete. Nebraska, the Big Ten tournament champion for the first time ever.
NCAA baseball coverage is presented by Mullen Motors, Sandhills Global, and Blur Events.
Once you get to the postseason, it's 5 wins to Omaha. You have 13,000 people here for this game. Imagine what it's like getting Nebraska to this venue for the College World Series. It's 5 wins away.
Here's Nick Sainert and Austin Orman.
That is right. To the Nebraska Baseball pregame show as we get you ready for the Huskers and the Florida Gators. Nick Sainert, Austin Orman coming to you from our own hotel rooms in Stillwater, Oklahoma, before we make our way back to O'Brate Stadium later today for a 1 p.m. first pitch in an elimination game between Nebraska and the Florida Gators. Before we get rolling, I want to thank our sponsors for allowing the broadcast to be possible: Sandhills Global, Mullen Motors, and Blur Events. In addition to those, the Nebraska Corn Board, Members-Owned Credit Union, Allo Fiber, Landmark Implement, and Select Plumbing. We know Nebraska awaits the Florida Gators after Florida falls to Oklahoma State last night. Austin and I were in attendance for the nightcap last night at O'Brate Stadium, and it was all Cowboys. And the Jack Caglianone home run in the ninth inning didn't really do a whole lot. Brian Holiday on the mound for Oklahoma State shut down the high-powered offense that the Florida Gators have. So I'm going to throw this up there. if on the stream, as that is the bracket, right? So now we know that Nebraska and Florida, 1 p.m. Central Time, first pitch today on ESPN+. Then if Nebraska is able to win, they will face off against the Oklahoma State Cowboys later tonight. 6:06 p.m. has been the time of start for the night games here in Stillwater. And whether it's Nebraska or Florida, they will have to knock off the Cowboys twice to advance to next weekend's Super Regional. So quite a big task, a longer road for Nebraska and for Florida, whoever is able to make it out of the 1 p.m. game. And with that, let's go ahead and bring in Austin Orman. Austin, good morning, my man. Another day we're here still in Stillwater on a Sunday. Better than going home yesterday.
No one was ready to go home. You weren't. I wasn't. Nebraska very clearly wasn't. They didn't necessarily play like it for the first few innings. Niagara got off to a hot start yesterday, and through that third inning, I was a little worried. Nebraska wasn't very energetic. The 40 or 50 Niagara fans that made the trip from Lewiston seemed to be pretty fired up. But it just took one inning, right? Nebraska was able to get a couple guys on base. Case Sanderson, one swing of the bat gets Nebraska back within one run, and it was off to the races from there. I'm glad Nebraska didn't cruise yesterday, Nick. I know it would have been nice to have a stress-free, drama-free game, but this is a team, I think, that thrives under adversity, that thrives under some of this pressure. So to have to play a competitive 9 innings, I think was really good for Nebraska. Right? They had to stay locked in from start to finish. And no matter who it was Nebraska was going to face today, they couldn't worry about it. Now that it's Florida, I'm excited to get another crack at an SEC blue blood, excited to see how Nebraska handles the pitching matchups and how it navigates the lineup, because Florida didn't look good yesterday. That's kind of the Florida that we expected in terms of the pitching performance. Caglianone got shelled, which was not the first time this year that it's happened. But I don't know if yesterday's second game says more about the floor for Florida or the ceiling for Oklahoma State. I'm glad we get to stick around and find out another day.
Yeah, and whatever happens in this 1 p.m. game, Austin and I will be in attendance for tonight's game, whether that's Oklahoma State and Florida or Oklahoma State and Nebraska. To Austin's point, once again, Case Sanderson had a really nice day yesterday. Even though he just went 1 for 3, his one hit on the day was a 3-run home run that at that point yesterday drew Nebraska within 1 at 4-3 in the earlier innings in the top of the third. And then obviously you have Gabe Swanson, who is continuing the incredible run that he has had since the start of the Big Ten tournament. He hitting over 500, 7 home runs, 14 RBI for Gabe Swanson. It's been a really, really fun week and a half to watch some of these guys. There's certainly some guys, though, I think, Austin, that today, and if Nebraska is going to keep their season alive this afternoon, they're going to have to step up, right? Like I'm looking at Josh Caron as potentially one of those guys. He struggled with some less than quality at-bats this weekend. Also, maybe guys like Ben Columbus as well. And it's not just because those guys were hitless yesterday. It's been tough to see what type of approach they're having at the plate, right? Some bad swing and misses, just some lack of discipline from a couple of those guys. And when those guys are either hitting third or fifth in your lineup respectively, man, and especially when Nebraska's lineup has so little room for error and mistakes, it's important that kind of everybody's on the same page and having some quality at-bats.
It absolutely is. I like how you phrase that Nebraska's lineup isn't quite good enough, because that means Nebraska has to take every at-bat seriously. From the first inning through the 8th inning or the 9th inning, I mean, Nebraska should be the home team today, and you kind of hope Nebraska only gets 24 at-bats. But regardless if it's 24 or if it's 27, there's not one hitter good enough to carry the lineup. There's not 2 hitters good enough to carry the lineup, right? Gabe Swanson hit a couple solo home runs yesterday, but if solo home runs don't hurt Nebraska, they don't hurt other teams as bad. Granted, Swanson's yesterday were for the lead and for insurance, so every extra run mattered in a 2-run ball game. But you think about the Sanderson home run preceded by 9-hole getting on base, leadoff getting on base, and then the blast off of Sanderson's bat. We know Nebraska's not going to get a hit every at bat. We know that's never happened in the history of baseball. If it had, the game would still be going. But Nebraska has to work getting leadoff guys on today. You can't go 0 for 9 against Florida for a second time. You have to cause some havoc on the base path. We weren't able to see Nebraska run against Florida the first time productive outs are fine, right? If Nebraska is not going to have big innings, Nebraska has to have consistent pressure on the base paths and make Florida, earn all 27 outs.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot to maybe take away from Friday's game where Nebraska faced off against Florida, and you can make adjustments to today's game, right? I think that inability to get any leadoff guy on is certainly something that Nebraska needs to change today, right? Because that can allow – we saw it yesterday, I think, especially in the later innings with Jalen Worthley. With Jalen Worthley against Niagara, he did a really good job of getting the first guy out. And when Nebraska, in their case yesterday afternoon, was somewhat clinging on to a 1 or 2 run lead, getting that first guy out not only takes the wind out of the sails of the other side, but it also gives you basically just kind of a boost of confidence. I think we saw that in Niagara too, where Niagara would do a good job of responding. They'd strand some Husker runners on base. Their pitcher would make a couple of competitive pitches, get out of an inning and limit damage, and they were trying to get their guys going, right? But Jalen Worthley and even Mason McConaughey towards the latter end of his start, they did a really good job of attacking this leadoff guy in that inning. And we saw it to where there was a shift in momentum, a shift in confidence each inning. If you break it down inning by inning, there was a shift that favored Nebraska every time that they got the leadoff guy out. And conversely, on Friday, when Nebraska would make a big pitch, get a big defensive stop because Florida was hitting the ball all around the yard, when Nebraska would make a big play in the field, or Brett Sears or even Drew Christo would strike a couple of guys out, and Nebraska then goes and tries to pump up their guys, get a leadoff runner on, and didn't for the entirety of the game, Nebraska found it very, very difficult and understandably so to manufacture and score runs. And so it's, once again, that's the biggest thing today is how does Nebraska attack a pitching staff of Oregon, which I don't think we overreacted to their statistical numbers on Friday, Austin. I felt like we were pretty realistic and listen, this is what the data, this is what the numbers are telling us. Nebraska just frankly helped out Florida. So now 2 days later, and I believe Florida used 5 pitchers last night against Oklahoma State, you're taking a very run-of-the-mill, mediocre type of bullpen and saying and if you're Florida, saying we need big-time innings out of you guys. Nebraska has an opportunity to kind of right the wrong and get a little bit of revenge against the Gators today.
They absolutely do. And I know pitching sets the tone. I get it. But I think it's going to be an offensive sort of day against Florida's bullpen because, Nebraska's only used 4 guys through 2 games. That's by far the fewest of anyone here in the regional. I mean, even Oklahoma State threw some guys out there against Niagara in the first game. But Nebraska's offense is going to have to score more than 2 runs to win the game. Nebraska's offense is probably going to have to score more than 5 runs to win the game, right? So you can't afford to leave another 8 guys on base. And this is a game too, Nick. I've said it the previous 2 days. I'm going to say it again here. Nebraska has to set the tone early. Nebraska needs early offense because Florida didn't look good yesterday and they didn't look in the game late. I know it's not the shortest turnaround, but it's a pretty quick turnaround. That Florida team looked pretty dejected yesterday. They looked pretty helpless in the dugout, and that's uncommon from them. So I think if Nebraska is able to get off to a hot start, whether that's a single bunt and then a double to the gap, trade places, you have a runner on second with 1 out and a run already in, whether that's a home run, whatever it is, I think 1, 2, 3, and 4 in Nebraska's lineup have to be ready to go in the bottom of the first inning to get Nebraska off to a good start. And I get it. Florida's going to be, mentally tough. I'm sure they'll come ready to play today. But man, you and I were both sitting out there in right center field watching that Florida dugout down the first baseline. We weren't impressed with how they handled the late stages of that game.
No, you're absolutely right. I want to go back to Nebraska's game against Florida too, right? Because Neely, who they faced on the mound on Friday, has had some postseason experience in his past and has been pretty successful. He's kind of their guy that they wanted to lean on in the postseason to start, and it ultimately did a good job. I think though, when you look at Nebraska, and I'm going to pull up Florida's side of this as well in just a couple of minutes. But when we talk about, the approach offensively, right? And Nebraska struggled, I think, once again, not only to get the leadoff guy on, but also hitting with 2 outs. And that's such a big thing. We saw where on the flip side in the Big Ten tournament, Nebraska did really well with not only runners in scoring position as a whole, but also getting the bat on the ball with 2 outs. And that's a big piece of in any baseball game, but especially the postseason, where most of the time runs are at a premium. I think when you look at the teams that are in this tournament, maybe that's not as important for a team like Florida or a team like we saw last night with Oklahoma State, where 5 of their 7 runs came on solo home runs, right? But with Nebraska, and we've talked extensively about this, with the type of baseball that they play, and frankly, that's the right type of baseball that Nebraska needs to play based on roster construction, unless your name is Gabe Swanson or last weekend Josh Caron. It's going to be, how can we manufacture these runs with 2 outs, right? It's going to be with a guy on second or third with less than 2 outs. Are you able to do your job? And whether that's a sacrifice fly, whether that's laying down a bunt, that is what I think is, while yes, Nebraska struggles to maybe score over 8 runs, like their average is just a little over 6. Well, I think they're going to need to figure out a way today to score more than 5 or more than 6. And they might not be able to do that via the long ball. So that makes and magnifies every single other, I should say, situation or possibility on how to score a run for Nebraska just that much more important.
It does, right? Yesterday, Sanderson had the home run, obviously, but also the sacrifice fly, lifted a fly ball deep to right to score over Beek after the triple. I think then to the bottom of the 6th inning, where Nebraska has some momentum in their corner. They take the lead at 6-5, and they're looking to add on to it. They have runners at second and third, or first and second before a balk. Runners move to second and third with nobody out. Infield from Niagara gets drawn in. Riley Silva, to his credit, put good bat on ball, made good contact with a drawn-in infield. Second baseman was able to knock down the ground ball, hold the runner at third for the first out. But then, Nick, the top 2 guys in the lineup struck out. Didn't even put the ball in play. That cannot happen today, right? The longer you let Florida hang around, the more guys you leave on base, the greater the chances are that Florida is going to, run into one, deposit it over the wall. So I'd love to see Nebraska, we talk about with 2 outs, right? Get that base knock. Don't try to do too much. Just a measly single should score, 75% of the guys on Nebraska's roster from second, especially with how deep the outfields have been playing, right? In a situation like that with 2 outs, with the way O'Brate Stadium has played, we've seen outfielders line up, 10 yards in front of the warning track, if that, sometimes, just a couple steps. There is a lot of space in the outfield. I know the ball's carrying, but if you can just shoot a line drive through a gap, get a bouncing ball in between, first and second or between second and third, with how deep the outfield is playing, that's enough to score the run. That goes back to approach. Don't try to do too much. Get bat to ball. Nice, easy swing, because you can't have runners on second and third with nobody out and get no runs out of it. That's not a way to win a regional.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. By the way, 402-464-5685, the Sartor Heyman Jewelers text line is open for you guys, as well as on the comments bar in our social media streams, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You guys can comment on those streams, and we'll be able to see, answer questions, respond to comments. The comments were alive yesterday after Nebraska's 7-5 postseason victory against Niagara. I think Austin makes a good point with everything. We'll talk as we go on, talk about the pitching, right? Who is an arm that we might see Nebraska use today, although there's no confirmation yet, right? And we're doing this. We'll get done with this by, and there'll still be an hour until first pitch, but Will Bolt kind of plays it close to the vest, plays all of the decision-making kind of close to the vest. We heard last night that Florida is going to go with Pierce Capola. And so Pierce, not necessarily the most experienced guy on the mound. We'll kind of dive in a little bit more to that throughout the course of the pregame show here. But before we we continue, do want to mention Sandhills Global is hiring. You can find your fit today in their fast-paced growing culture in Lincoln at sandhills.jobs. Austin, let's just wrap up our final thoughts on the lineups here, right? Because Nebraska, we saw it on Friday where they kind of went with the lineup, the more traditional lineup that we've seen from them. I think where Rhett Stokes is in the 9 hole, right? Riley Silva's in 8, Dylan Carey at 6, or excuse me, at 7 rather. The designated hitter spot has been kind of fluctuating, and Ty Stone got that start on Friday at the designated hitter spot, hitting 6th in the lineup. And that was potentially because Liam Peterson throws from the right side. If you want to platoon, have that righty-lefty matchup, we can certainly see kind of Will Bolt's thought process there. Pierce today, he throws from the left side. So that kind of initially takes Ty Stone out of possibility for me. I opened up the idea of, do we see maybe Josh Caron move to designated hitter today? And maybe we see Garrett Anglem or Ben Columbus doing some catching, where you're keeping Josh Caron in the lineup, right? Because the bat is too good to take out of it. And he's going to be an MLB guy. So potentially in his last couple of games for Nebraska this weekend. But we also saw yesterday where Rhett Stokes moves up in the lineup. Dylan Carey and Riley Silva move down in the lineup. We have yet to see Cole Evans get an at-bat this weekend. We even saw Clay Bradford in a pinch hitting opportunity on Friday against Florida get an at-bat. How do you kind of see Nebraska potentially shaping their lineup against the lefty arm of Pierce Capola today?
Well, don't forget Niagara started a lefty yesterday as well, and we still saw these guys. So I'm not necessarily out on Ty Stone being in the lineup today. I think he struggled a little bit, but Nebraska seems to like him. So maybe they trust that bat. I mean, Case Sanderson, a lefty, he's hitting in the 2-hole yesterday against a lefty starter as well. It makes me wonder if there's something behind the scenes with Cole Evans. I don't want to speculate because I don't know. But with a lefty yesterday and a lefty today, if we don't see Cole Evans today, I'm officially concerned that something is up behind the scenes. I'd like to see him in there. In terms of Caron versus Columbus at catcher, this is where I think it kind of plays into the conversation of who's on the mound, which we'll get to. Columbus at catcher has caught Will Walsh a few times, so has Josh Caron. You have to go all in on this game because you don't get to tonight if you don't win the first game at 1:00. But at the same time, you have to, assume that you're going to win to some degree and plan the lineup ahead to see who's going to catch tonight if you win. You're going to see a different catcher if Nebraska plays both games. So would you rather have Columbus behind the dish and Caron's legs saved for the second game? Or do you maybe catch Caron in this first one, keep Columbus at first base, and bring in a different designated hitter, and then put a different catcher behind the dish in a potential match against Oklahoma State?
Yeah, the Cole Evans situation is interesting, right? Because he plays in the first 2 games in the Big Ten tournament against Ohio State and then Purdue. He then has 2 days off, plays on Saturday against Indiana in their first 4-2 victory in the morning game. And then he also got the start in the Big Ten championship game. He's a guy who's hitting .256 on the year with 5 home runs, 11 doubles, 41 RBI. He's drawn 27 walks. He's been hit by 12 pitches. And on a team where you have guys that are striking out in the upper 50s, right? Like Dylan Carey, I believe, has close to 60 strikeouts on the season. And I understand like defensive positioning and valuable and or I should say value defensively plays a factor into this. But Cole Evans has only struck out 36 times this season. And I say only because on a team that strikes out 1 every 5 batters on average, statistically, that's a pretty low number, right, for some of these guys. So I'm interested. I'm kind of fascinated by, we haven't seen him in a pinch hitting opportunity either. There's been opportunities for Nebraska where they've had runners on base. And I think this is also paired with Ty Stone's really been struggling as of late. He struggled with, I think, putting some good approaches together. I think struggling to get some good appearances strung together. If Ty Stone's out there hitting bombs, and we finally saw him break through yesterday on one that was roped to right field for a double, if Ty Stone's not in a slump and Nebraska's back isn't up against the wall, there's probably nobody really saying anything. But ultimately, things get criticized, understandably and rightfully so, when there's certain spots in the lineup that are certainly struggling.
The other part to watch with that is Caden Brumbaugh. He's a right-handed batter, so you'd think this would be another natural spot to slide him in at DH. But don't forget, Ty Stone didn't start yesterday. He came in to pinch hit for Caden Brumbaugh after one at bat. Brumbaugh didn't look that great, looked a little hesitant, little unsure in the box. But again, it's a guy that knows the ballpark and a guy that, before that left wrist injury was hitting pretty well for Nebraska. They slotted him in at DH quite a bit. So we didn't get any or much, if any, explanation about why Stone replaced Brumbaugh after just one at bat yesterday. You hope it's not health related. I would like to see Caden Brumbaugh again, more of a contact style guy with some speed in the lineup. I think that's going to be Nebraska's best chance at extending some innings. But if it is injury related, that left wrist flared up and it didn't feel good, might understand why he was a little hesitant to swing and why Nebraska yanked him after just one AB yesterday.
It's interesting that you bring up Caden Brumbaugh, and understandably so. I think today is a day that we could certainly see Nebraska and Will Bolt with the input of Harvell and Sirianni as well, to where this is the time to use Brumbaugh as a runner, right? We saw that in the Big Ten tournament. He was the reason, and Will Bolt talked about it, how if he doesn't steal second base, then the defense doesn't move up, and Gabe Swanson's double at the end to score Brumbaugh from second is null and void, right? It was almost if the defense is playing no doubles defense, then they have a chance to get Brumbaugh at the plate. But instead, because he was able to swipe an extra 90 feet, he was able to score easily. I wonder if there was a moment in Friday's game, even against Florida, where Austin, you and I were like, maybe do you pinch run Brumbaugh? And we say pinch run because you can be a little more aggressive with that, with the ability to re-enter guys, right? With the ability to re-enter somebody once, right? So if Brumbaugh hypothetically came in for Columbus or Stone or one of the slower guys, you could re-enter one of those guys into their game, into their position defensively. And especially at that moment, I think on Friday when we brought that up, it was a 3-2 type of game. And it was like, that's a pretty valuable run out there on first or second base. And that's where you kind of have to play the mix and match game of, do you want to, exhaust and use Caden Brumbaugh as a runner early in the contest in the third, fourth, or fifth inning, or do you want to take the gamble that there will be an opportunity for you in the later innings?
The reason we talked about that so much in the press box was because Nebraska hadn't had many opportunities, right? They score that run in the first, leave the couple on base, but Nebraska hadn't had a lot of guys on base. So the way that I think you and I were thinking through it is, hey, we haven't had many guys on base. We're starting to get to the Florida pitching staff. You had, I'm trying to think who it was, someone with decent speed on second. Might have been Karen, might have been Sanderson. But then I believe it was Sanderson, because then Columbus was on first. Yes. So then my thought was, hey, let's enter Brumbaugh here. So if Nebraska gets a ball to the gap, it gets past the outfielders. Brumbaugh's at least got a chance to score on a gap shot. They didn't do it. So then those runners move up to second and third. I'm like, okay, now's absolutely the time to pinch run for Brumbaugh so we can score on a little single. Nebraska didn't do it. It ultimately ended up not mattering as the Huskers didn't score. But yeah, maybe it would have been a little early in the game, but given that Nebraska hadn't had many opportunities, I thought that would have been a chance to do it. And like we talked about at the start of the segment, Nebraska has to maximize these opportunities. So even if it didn't matter because Nebraska didn't score at all, I still don't think Nebraska handled that situation the best. And I would have loved to have known the rationale for keeping Columbus there with the ability to re-enter him for defense at first. I do want to clean up something because I messed up just there. It was Karen, because then Nebraska ended up, Karen was at third, not Sanderson. Karen was at third, Columbus at second, and then somebody drew a walk. I believe it was Swanson drew the walk. Ty Stone then put a good swing on the ball, and Karen failed to tag up. That was the situation there with that we talked to Will Bolt about post game on Friday. So, all right, with that being said, it's time for us to take a break. When we come back, let's dive into the Florida pitcher. Who is Nebraska going to see today?
We got a little bit of insight from Kevin O'Sullivan last night in the post-game press conference after they fell to Oklahoma State 7-1 in the winners bracket game. So when we come back, we take a closer look at the Florida Gators and the left arm on the mound facing the Huskers later today. 1 p.m. first pitch from Stillwater, Oklahoma, in an elimination game against Nebraska versus the Florida Gators. The winner gets to face off against Oklahoma State, the host school, later on tonight, just after 6 p.m. So once again, Nick Sainert, Austin Norman coming at you from Stillwater, Nebraska. Harrison Arns back on in our 93.7 The Ticket studios. Let's take a break. Come right back, talk a little bit about the Florida Gators after this on 93.7 The Ticket.
Are you looking to get into the electrical construction industry or wanting a new scene? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Southeast Community College invites you to check out our spaces ahead of your official campus visit. Our virtual campus tours let you see our campuses and learn more about our programs of study. Then you can schedule your individual visit in person or virtually. Virtual tours of our campuses in Beatrice, Lincoln, or Milford, and our learning centers are online at southeast.edu/visit SCC. SCC, your path to possible.
Hey, baseball fans, join the Blur Tailgate at Hilton Omaha this June for our 12th annual hospitality event during the College Baseball Championship Series. Book an experience for your clients or employees with an inclusive bar, buffet, TVs, music, and tailgate games. Secure your spot today and let Blur Events take care of all the work so you can enjoy the day. Plus, we're just steps away from Charles Schwab Field. Visit blurevents.com to book your group, buy tickets, or learn about sponsorships. That's blurevents.com, your college baseball and football tailgate destination.
Del and Ed present A Kernel of Truth.
That's Ed's new drone. Why do a couple of Nebraska corn farmers need a drone? 2 words: multi-spectral imaging. Drones help us farm more efficiently and protect planet Earth. Yep, Ed's a pretty good pilot. When he doesn't hit the broadside of a barn, that is. Nebraska corn. It's the plant that can change the planet.
Visit nebraskacorn.gov to learn more.
It's the best time of the year to order a new John Deere planter from Landmark Implement during the early order program. Plant for success with the industry's latest technology. Upgrade to an Exactly Merge high-speed planter to cover more acres, increasing flexibility and productivity. Now is the time to lock in the best price of the year. Contact your local Landmark location to order your new John Deere planter and experience the Landmark difference.
The weather is hot, the kids are out of school, and you're on your way to the lake and summer road trips. Are you getting to your vacation spot comfortably, or is your car letting you down? Mullen Motors Lot is full of great vehicles to take home, so you don't have to worry about your current car barely surviving another road trip. Come check out their lot just north of 48th and Layton and find your next ride for summer road trips and beyond. Mullen Motors.
No tag-ons, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
Hey there, fellas. It's your girl Jordan with Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Let's talk about versatility today. Unlike flowers that wither and die or chocolates that disappear in a heartbeat, jewelry is the solid move here, guys. Yes, she will cherish it, but more important than anything, she will brag about it and brag about you. And that's what it's all about. Until next time, this is Jordan at Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Happy shopping, guys.
Are you looking to get into the electrical construction industry or wanting a new scene? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Hello.
Angela, we have to break up.
But why?
Because you're a robot and I'm just a guy trying to get better internet.
It's Aloe Fiber, isn't it? I always knew you wanted faster speeds. My contract isn't good enough for you.
Face it, Angela. They let me talk to real people.
Press 4 to break my heart. Oh wait, you already did.
Visit aloefiber.com to switch today.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
Here you go. Coffee's on me and my new BFF. I thought I was your best friend forever. BFF like best financial friend at Members Own Credit Union. Right now, they're offering $100 when you consolidate or transfer a loan or an existing credit card balance and meet requirements. Plus, you get great rates and free advice from a financial partner that will put you first. That sounds like a match made in heaven. Members Own Credit Union is the type of bestie you can count on. Get started today at memberzonecu.org/BFF. Limitations may apply. Equal housing opportunity.
Soulful Casino in Havelock is a family-owned business, providing incredible food and service that'll have you craving more with every bite. Soulful Casino offers everything from pulled pork to fried chicken, catfish, ribs, and even quesadillas. You want sides? They've got them. From fries, green beans and baked beans, to collard greens, potato salad, and sweet dill corn. Stop by for lunch as they have specials Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 2 p.m. That's Soulful Casino, located in Havelock, where every bite you take fills the soul.
Back to 93.7 The Ticket special presentation from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Brought to you by Mullen Motors, Sandhills Global, and Blair Events. With Nick Sainert and Austin Orman on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back into 93.7 The Ticket's coverage from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Nick Sainert, Austin Orman alongside. Well, not really. In another hotel room in another hotel, but in the same city of Cushing, Oklahoma. It's about 15 miles south of Stillwater. That's where we're at. Not a whole lot in this town other than a Taco Bell, a McDonald's, a Sonic, and that's about it. Maybe a couple gas stations as well, but we've made it our home here since Thursday night. And we hope that we get to stay here another night as Nebraska has an elimination game later on in a little over an hour and 20 minutes against the Florida Gators, 1 p.m. Central Time, first pitch from O'Brate Stadium in Stillwater. I want to thank Mullen Motors. Summer is here. Don't settle for road trips in your rundown clunker. Head to Mullen Motors to find your new ride for this year and years to come, just north of 48th and Layton in Lincoln. So once again, Nick Sainert, Austin Orman with you. Let's talk about Florida Gators pitching, right? Because they've used a couple of guys, a couple more than Nebraska has this weekend as well. Florida loses 7-1 to the Oklahoma State Cowboys last night. Austin and I were in attendance for that one, and man, it was a quick Oklahoma State heavily favored ball game, right? There was a lot of fans in the stadium, understandably so, but great pitching performance by Brian Holiday of Oklahoma State shut down this Florida Gators lineup outside of a Jack Caglianone ninth inning home run to make it 7-1. Cowboys today, it sounds like Florida going to go with Pierce Capola on the mound, a 6'8" redshirt sophomore, throws from the left side. Stats, though, it's a very similar, if not more interesting story than on Friday, Austin. Season highs for Capola on the mound. He hasn't gone longer or deeper than 3 2/3. He holds an 0-4 record. He has 6 appearances on the season, and all 6 appearances that he's pitched in, Florida has lost that game. He pitched against South Carolina. He's pitched against Vanderbilt twice, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Georgia. Just 14 1/3 innings on the year for Capola. He's allowed 4 home runs. He struck out 18, but only walked 6. I think when you look at Pierce Capola, once again, this feels like, all right, Florida's going to a full bullpen style game. And if Nebraska can get to Capola early on here, you feel like they might be in the driver's seat of this elimination game.
It's going to be important, too, because he hasn't exactly dominated in these innings, right? He's given up runs in, I believe, all of his appearances. The only one he didn't allow an earned run in was against Kentucky, and that was just under a month ago. He's a big guy, 6'8", 255. Nebraska hasn't seen a lot of pitchers that tall, for the simple fact that there aren't many pitchers that tall. But he's going to be in and around the zone for the most part. But Nebraska's just got to go get him, right? There's not going to be excuses today. I'm trying to look into what Florida has done behind him in these games on the mound. So he's a 6'8", 255 lefty. I'm through 4 of his 6 appearances. And every time Florida has followed him up with a righty out of the bullpen. So we talked about Nebraska's lineup construction a little bit. The first 4 appearances, Nebraska followed him up with, or Florida followed Coppola up with a righty in all 6. So don't be afraid if you're Nebraska. If you love the data, if you love the platoon advantage, don't be afraid to start righties in the lineup, but tell your lefties to be ready to go. Florida has more righties than lefties on the roster, and in every time this guy's taken the mound, they haven't followed up with another left-hander. So if you're Brumbaugh, if you're Evans, guys like that we talked about, you might get just 1 at bat, maybe 2, depending on how the offense is going. But Florida's going to have a quick hook, as Nebraska should as well, because your season's on the line. It's an elimination game. If you're a fireman in the bullpen, you have to be ready to go in a moment's notice as well. So the hope for Nebraska is, again, get off to a fast start, catch Florida maybe off guard. They're probably hoping for 3 innings out of him. If you can chase him in the second by putting up 3 or 4 runs and make Florida get into that bullpen even earlier, lefty batters in Nebraska's dugout, be getting your swings in. Stay hot, stay loose, stay ready.
It'll be interesting. Pierce Coppola hasn't pitched since May 21st in the first round in the first game of Florida's SEC tournament when they played Vanderbilt. I mean, that we're talking now almost 2 full weeks since he pitched last. Obviously, it would be basically a week and 5 days since Pierce has seen action on the mound in an actual game. Certainly he's thrown bullpen sessions and flat grounds and other stuff, but in a game against actual hitters, against guys that are trying to truly tee off, it's going to be interesting to see how Coppola kind of comes out. And once again, I think we can tell a lot from Florida and Nebraska today about what type of mentality they have in their body language, right? Because I would give it slightly to Nebraska in this case, not only because they've been here before, not only because this is kind of how their season has gone, but ultimately they did win a game last time out, right? That I'm worried about Nebraska against Niagara not coming out awake and ready to go less or more than I worried about them coming out today feeling like that. This is the time where I think if you're Nebraska, you look at a Florida team that just got shut down against Oklahoma State last night, right? You want to talk about in those winter brackets games, you want to prove to yourself, I think, that you can contend with the host school. Florida showed last night that they got a little bit of a ways to go. There's a pretty large gap there. Fortunately, Nebraska hasn't had the ability or opportunity to play Oklahoma State yet, and so they don't feel like that. They only have what they go off of Florida, and when they played Florida on Friday, and frankly, Nebraska missed opportunities to stay a little bit more competitive in that game.
They did. I'll talk about the Nebraska mindset first before diving into Florida. If you're Nebraska, you're feeling good coming off a win yesterday. You had to play a competitive 9-inning game. Adrenaline was flowing, juices was flowing. You had to get all 27 outs. You weren't over the top celebratory. You kind of felt like you took care of business, like you were the more talented team. You shrugged off a punch early, and then you ended up winning the game. McConaughey was really good after that first inning. You're in a good spot with your bullpen. You have, a lot of options in your lineup ready to go. So Nebraska should be feeling good about today. On the flip side for Florida, I'm fascinated to see how they respond because they looked dead yesterday. They got dominated. They only had 2 hits, a double, and then the Caglianone home run off the top of the batter's eye in center field in the 9th inning. Far too little and far too late. The incident that you and I were talking about, maybe that's not the right word, but the situation was there's a pitcher that came off the mound. He got taken out after giving up a couple runs. Not a single body stirred in that Florida dugout to come out and greet him, even though he had given up a couple runs. Nobody talked to him in the dugout. He tossed his glove against the back of the wall, and he walked down to the end of the line. Nobody acknowledged him at all. Not out of the dugout, not in the dugout, heads hung, arms over the dugout railing, just kind of sitting there. So I'm curious.
Sorry to interrupt, Austin. We were more fascinated by that situation than the game at that point, because it was minutes of him just standing next to guys, like with probably a foot of space. So it wasn't shoulder to shoulder, but it's not like he was on the end of the dugout. He was probably a foot away, and we could see from where we were at, nobody even turned to look at him.
Didn't turn their heads, didn't say a word to him after a rough outing, right? And I get it. You're down, 4-0. I think it was 5 or 6-0 by the time he was taken out of the game. But you have an explosive offense. You can hit a couple home runs, get a guy or two on base, and all of a sudden, hey, there's a spark. You're back within striking distance. So either Florida is going to be extremely mentally tough. Coach O'Sullivan's going to have a talk with them last night, or he did this morning, and he's going to light a fire, and they're going to come with a better mindset. Because I think if you look at Florida, they should feel good about this. They missed as many, if not more, opportunities than Nebraska did in that first game. Florida looks like the bigger, more athletic lineup. They throw harder, they hit harder than Nebraska does on average. So maybe Florida is just going to play bully ball, right? They're okay when they face someone that they view as worse than them. And maybe, they back down when there's someone a little bit better than them. But the flip side of that is maybe Florida's just done. Maybe Florida's just cooked mentally. Maybe Oklahoma State drove a nail into the coffin. In a big inning from Nebraska, we would get the same reaction from Florida when O'Sullivan comes to get Coppola off the mound. I'm really curious to see the headspace that this Florida team is in.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Florida also changed their lineup a little bit yesterday after having a big game against Nebraska, and then also just stringing a couple of really nice performances together. Ashton Wilson, I believe is his name. They brought him up from in the bottom three of the lineup all the way up to the 3-hole, and he went 0 for yesterday. A lot of the guys went 0 for yesterday against a really good arm on the mound. A brief update, brief breaking news here. Nebraska's game has now just been switched to SEC Network. And so it's going to be available on ESPN Plus, but the TV crews have bumped it also to the SEC Network. Florida Baseball just tweeted that out less than 10 minutes ago, that it's going to be on SEC Network in addition to ESPN Plus. So if you get that, great. If not, it's so be it, whatever. But ESPN Plus is still somewhere where I think a lot of Husker fans can watch it if they're trying to watch it in Big Ten country. So, all right, let's take a break. A little bit early here, I know, Harrison, but let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, that way we can really have more time to dive into Nebraska baseball. Who's the arm that we're looking for on the mound today for the Huskers? We have a pretty good idea of who it is. Still waiting on confirmation, but we'll go ahead and approach and talk about it as if we have assumed and have the right answer in the back of our minds. So once again, Nick Sainert, Austin Norman from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Thanks to Mullen Motors, Blur Events, and Sandhills Global for their support. As always, we'll come right back, finish out the pregame show about an hour away from first pitch here between Nebraska and Florida on 93.7 The Ticket.
Hello. Thanks.
Angela, we have to break up.
But why?
Because you're a robot and I'm just a guy trying to get better internet.
It's Aloe Fiber, isn't it? I always knew you wanted faster speeds. My contract isn't good enough for you.
Face it, Angela. They let me talk to real people.
Press 4 to break my heart. Oh wait, you already did.
Visit aloefiber.com to switch today.
Load up on meat and more this spring at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese at 84th and Havelock. This week's specials through June 4th is buy 2 New York strips, get 1 sirloin for free. Also, $1.50 off gelato pints and scoops of gelato for just 50 cents. Locations at 84th and Havelock and 30th and Yankee Hill in Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
Dell and Ed present A Kernel of Truth.
That's Ed's new drone. Why do a couple of Nebraska corn farmers need a drone? 2 words: multispectral imaging. Drones help us farm more efficiently and protect planet Earth. Yep, Ed's a pretty good pilot. When he doesn't hit the broadside of a barn, that is. Nebraska corn. It's the plant that can change the planet.
Visit nebraskacorn.gov to learn more.
The weather is hot, the kids are out of school, and you're on your way to the lake and summer road trips. Are you getting to your vacation spot comfortably, or is your car letting you down? Mullen Motors lot is full of great vehicles to take home, so you don't have to worry about your current car barely surviving another road trip. Come check out their lot just north of 48th and Layton and find your next ride for summer road trips and beyond. Mullen Motors.
No tag-ons, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
Hey, baseball fans, join the Blur Tailgate at Hilton Omaha this June for our 12th annual hospitality event during the College Baseball Championship Series. Book an experience for your clients or employees with an inclusive bar, buffet, TVs, music, and tailgate games. Secure your spot today and let Blur Events take care of all the work so you can enjoy the day. Plus, we're just steps away from Charles Schwab Field. Visit blurevents.com to book your group, buy tickets, or learn about sponsorships. That's blurevents.com, your college baseball and football tailgate destination.
Hey there, fellas. It's your girl Jordan with Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Let's talk about versatility today. Unlike flowers that wither and die or chocolates that disappear in a heartbeat, jewelry is the solid move here, guys. Yes, she will cherish it, but more important than anything, she will brag about it and brag about you. And that's what it's all about. Until next time, this is Jordan at Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Happy shopping, guys.
Spring sports are here and it's time to upgrade your equipment. But don't go rush into your big box store. Play It Again Sports is your place to go for all spring sports equipment for baseball, softball, golf, and disc golf. Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And don't forget, buying from them is a great way to get new products with great discounts by also bringing in your used items for store credit or cash on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Hey, baseball fans, join the Blur Tailgate at Hilton Omaha this June for our 12th annual hospitality event during the College Baseball Championship Series. Book an experience for your clients or employees with an inclusive bar, buffet, TVs, music, and tailgate games. Secure your spot today and let Blur Events take care of all the work so you can enjoy the day. Plus, we're just steps away from Charles Schwab Field. Visit blurevents.com to book your group, buy tickets, or learn about sponsorships. That's blurevents.com, your college baseball and football tailgate destination.
If you've been putting off your health, what are you waiting for? The summer 10-week challenge at Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping is exactly what you need to kickstart your wellness. Farrell's gives you all the tools, coaching, support, and accountability you need to be successful. The 10-week challenge begins on June 8th, and monthly payments are now available. Head to fxblincoln.com for all the details. Stop taking your health for granted and get started with Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping.
I'm Dave Osted. And I'm Ryan Osted. Every golfer will get value from being custom fit. The truth is, the higher handicappers will get more value from being custom fit than the low handicappers.
It's changed so much since my dad started the business in 1963. We now have hundreds of thousands of dollars in technology, and we know exactly what the spin rate is, what the launch angle is. We encourage you to bring your current clubs in now, and we can compare it. And guys walk out of the store knowing that the purchase they just made, they're going to give them 21 more yards off the tee box. Play better, have fun, and shop Osted's.
Here you go. Coffee's on me and my new BFF. I thought I was your best friend forever. BFF like best financial friend at Members Own Credit Union. Right now, they're offering $100 when you consolidate or transfer a loan or an existing credit card balance and meet requirements. Plus, you get great rates and free advice from a financial partner that will put you first. That sounds like a match made in heaven. Members Own Credit Union is the type of bestie you can count on. Get started today at memberzonecu.org/BFF. Limitations may apply. Equal housing opportunity.
It's the best time of the year to order a new John Deere planter from Landmark Implement during the early order program. Plant for success with the industry's latest technology. Upgrade to an exactly merged high-speed planter to cover more acres, increasing flexibility and productivity. Now is the time to lock in the best price of the year. Contact your local Landmark location to order your new John Deere planter and experience the Landmark difference.
Back to 93.7 The Ticket special presentation from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Brought to you by Mullen Motors, Sand Hills Global, and Blur Events. With Nick Sainert and Austin Orman on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All righty, folks. Well, Last segment before we make our way back over to O'Brate Stadium. Nick Sainert, Austin Norman. First pitch scheduled for 1 p.m. So with that hour that we have in between, make sure you keep it tuned. 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. A little bit of news here as the starting pitcher for Nebraska has officially been announced. Before we tell you who it is, I want to thank Blur Events. The road to the College World Series starts now, and the best party for the College World Series is at the Blur Tailgate at Hilton Omaha from June 14th to June 22nd. Get ready for the best tailgating experience that you'll find anywhere. Just 2 blocks south of the stadium. You can purchase your tickets for that event at blurevents.com. All right, so getting the start on the mound today for the Huskers is Jackson Brockett, the left-handed pitcher, pitched for the Huskers against the Penn State Nittany Lions in the Big Ten Championship. Ends up going 8 innings, 1 earned run, allowed 4 hits, 5 strikeouts, and 1 walk in that Big Ten title game. Brockett on the season, 3-2 record. He's pitched 12 times this season for the Huskers. 6 of those are starts. He'll make his 7th start today, holds a 3.57 earned run average in just over 35 innings. Good strikeout to walk ratio, walks 1 guy for every 4 strikeouts, 29 strikeouts on the season, just 7 free passes allowed. Austin, fair to say we knew it was going to be either Brockett or Will Walsh, both of those guys with good performances in the Big Ten tournament. Will Walsh went the complete game against Indiana, while Brockett went 8 innings and allowed Brett Sears to slam the door shut in the championship game. Are you surprised it's Brockett?
Slightly. And having some conversations, I never, got information one way or the other. I was under the impression it was likely to be Walsh, but they're similar guys, right? You look at Brockett's numbers; they're better than Walsh's this year, but fewer appearances, right? Walsh has taken the mound a handful of times more than Brockett has, but I think this just continues the late season resurgence of Jackson Brockett. Not a great start to begin the Big Ten tournament, bounced back in a big way, obviously against Penn State, like you said. Good for him. We know he's got it in him. I like the lefty-lefty matchup for Nebraska and Florida with a couple of those guys on the mound. Not surprised, happy for him. But then, Nick, it leads me to this question. Do we see the righty Will Walsh in the lineup today? It's been a while since he swung, but we know Nebraska hasn't been afraid to deploy him against left-handed starters. I wonder if that's part of the calculus now.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And that would be, something certainly to be interesting to tune into. If once again, though, it's the season is on the line. You have to be pretty confident in what decisions you make today as a staff.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume Nebraska has some data, something telling it that Brockett is the move over Walsh. Curious to get the lineup and see what it is, and whether it works or whether it doesn't. How Will Bolts, I don't want to say defends, but how he justifies, how he explains the decision to go with Brockett over Walsh in this game will tell me a lot, because that's something that I've been, I don't want to say critical of, but kind of raised my eyebrows a few times at some of the explanations or lack of explanations from Will Bolton post game pressers about the decisions that are being made. So I'm curious to see and hear why they decide Brockett in game 1.
All righty. Well, the music means that our time is just about up. And so once again, Nebraska and Florida getting ready for a 1 p.m. first pitch. Want to thank all of our sponsors, Blur Events, Sandhills Global, Mullen Motors, the Nebraska Corn Board, enhancing demand, adding value, ensuring sustainability, nebraskacorn.gov, Members Own Credit Union. You can learn more about them at membersowncu.org, Aloe Fiber, Landmark Implement, and Select Plumbing. Nick Sainert, Austin Norman with you, saying so long from Stillwater. We'll be back after the game for a little post-game reaction as well. And hopefully we're talking about Nebraska playing tonight against Oklahoma State. The Huskers and Gators at 1 p.m. from Stillwater. Back to the crew in Lincoln on 93.7 The Ticket.
Dell and Ed present A Kernel of Truth.
That's Ed's new drone. Why do a couple of Nebraska corn farmers need a drone? 2 words.